if you can share with us how you are actually being flexible with all your identities, I think that would be super helpful, because what you're saying is just recognizes the ego. 100% agree, but it's also not easy to do. So how do you let go of your egoic identities so that you can be more fluid, so they don't drive you and you use them when need be?
The easiest way I would say it is you never lose your ego, right? It's there. And it should be, but you drown it out with purpose. Focus on the purpose in your life, and the ego will be used instead of you being used by the ego being used by you to drive your purpose. So in my case, I have decided that I want to help empower leaders in the private sector and government sector to take control of their cybersecurity so that they can build those cybersecure first cultures for their organizations and for their families and their communities. And so I wrapped every bit of who I've been to serve that purpose. And when you're using those pieces of you for a purpose, it's no longer ego driving you, it's ego being pulled at strategic points where it needs to be deployed to drive that purpose. And take one thing as an example, right? So I mentioned you never lose your ego, quite the opposite. You use your ego strategically. For me, I have a thing about bullies, right? Part of the reason probably why I'm in cybersecurity. When I see a bully hurting somebody else, I go to town, right? If that person is aware that they're being a bully and they're doing it on purpose, I leave not a dry thread. But for that to happen, it's being done strategically. It's not being done because that's who I am. Does that make sense?
It does. At the same time that the ego expression is so seductive, once you get it going, and it's another, I don't know if you know exactly what I mean. So once you get a win, the other person power, for example, and then it's easy to say, to amp it up even more, to get that little bit of a payoff. But we don't have to, go down that rabbit hole if you don't want to. It's one of those things that I think about a lot. And for me, you are a practitioner of what you're talking about, right? You are not only aware of these spiritual principles, but you're also practicing it, and you do it well. You're effective in the multiple domains. And that's why it's so interesting whenever I talk to someone like that. It's, in my mind, it's simpler to be a monk in a mountaintop, because they don't have all these other considerations that householders have. It's easy to talk to someone who is totally egoic, because the person is all about power, greed, and status. It's like, okay, so but it's not often when I see someone who is able to do both and do both really well.
Thank you for the compliment, but we're all on a path to growth. And the first thing that I always try to do these days is never judge. I don't care whether you're superbly wealthy or you're a homeless person. Everybody's got a story. And the first thing that I try to never do is judge. Even a person that is living out of their ego, they're living out of that ego because of conditions in their life. They may or may not have been aware enough about what those conditions were and how they created them into the person that they are today, but that may or may not be their fault. That they have the upbringing that would even teach them that they need to look deeper. In my case, for better or worse, I've had enough lessons in my life to have to, not necessarily to have to, but to be given the opportunity to look deeper inside. And I chose to do the tougher thing and really do look inside. And what I found was something that I really wasn't pleased with. And so that allowed me to peel the layers of the onion further and further until I started learning, this is where I was going, not wrong, but in a way that's actually incongruent with who I really am. Okay, let's learn, let's shift, let's upgrade. That's how I came to look at it. And so I started judging people less and less, because when I looked at my own journey, I realized, holy smokes, this is hard. And it is easier to live in your ego, much easier, but to have to look inside and then have to come out to the external world and live it every day with, whether it's employees that are not even close to being on a level, on a path towards awareness, or dealing with individuals that are far ahead of you, and you get yourself into that relationship and you realize, holy smokes, I'm not the person, that person is way ahead of me. I really need to catch up or else this is not going to work. That constant realization about yourself, which comes from daily practice of looking inside and asking yourself, okay, I'm not happy about what I'm seeing. Why am I not happy about it? That 7 layers deep becomes very important.